Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, once again. And wherever that we are representing or joining this webinar from across the globe. And whether you're a seasoned environmentalist, a passionate city planner, an advocate like myself, or someone curious about sustainability, I want to welcome you to this insightful webinar, sharing local experiences on organic waste management and the Green Africa Youth Organization's Zero Waste Cities project. So before we dive into today's discussion, I want you to imagine this. It's always important that we actually link whatever is happening around us to whatever that we are going to do so that we can see how important this webinar is and the knowledge that we are going to seek. And at the end of the day, what can it do for us? So I want everyone to imagine for a moment on the daily basis as we walk through your city, one thing that strives on the energy that's on a country is the energy of its people, its streets, very vibrant and full of life. And yet, beneath the surface, sometimes, and something less or more visible is actually happening, which is waste, which is silently accumulated. But this isn't just about waste, all right? It's organic remnants from our kitchen, our market, our gardens, and sometimes that was once alive, now heading towards the landfill, contributing to the pollution crisis that we are facing currently. But I want you to pause for a moment and then see what we can do out of this. What if this waste didn't have to be a problem? What if we could flip the script, transforming this waste into resources that generates our land and equally regenerate and equally support a circular economy? Have we ever asked these questions? And that's exactly what we are here to discuss today. Organic waste is not just a byproduct of, shall I say, modern life. It is an untapped treasure, which is equally waiting for us to manage in ways that can improve our cities, reduce our carbon footprints, and equally foster healthier ecosystem that's clean air. So under the Green Africa Youth Organization's Zero Waste Project or Zero Waste Cities Project, this webinar invites all of us to explore a powerful truth that sustainable urban living is within our reach, which is the fact, under Zero Waste Project or communities. So today we are going to discuss low-cost, innovative solutions to diverting organic waste from landfills and equally, particularly through composting, which will serve as both an environmental action and equally an economic opportunity that's creating alternative livelihood for people. So this lesson is not just about theories, just as probably we've been hearing over and over, but this time GAYO is equally doing something which is the real solutions, not false solutions, and equally local experiences and a vision of zero waste cities that equally bring together communities, governments, businesses, and everyday citizens like you and me. So I want you to and equally assure you that by the end of today, we'll walk away with actionable insights, strategic frameworks, and equally renewed sense of what is possible when it comes and what if is possible when we come together to tackle one of the biggest environmental challenges over time, which is waste. So, by the way, my name is Nana Minta, just as Mabel made mention, and I serve as the manager for the GAYO Eco Clubs in Africa. And it is my honor to be your host for today's critical session, which is equally going to factor in a lot of things that we can equally live sustainably and equally boost our economy. So without much ado, just as Mabel made mention, let's introduce ourselves in the chat box, and we've already done that. So we will dive into today's session. And so the person to do us the honor for today's discussion, for us to dive into the heart of the discussion, is absolutely someone who has been pioneering the zero waste cities in Ghana and across Africa. And he's in the person of Jacob Johnson Atapa, who serves as the manager for the Zero Waste Cities in Africa under the Circular Economy Department of GAYO. So he will guide us into a very deeper conversation into innovative strategies that GAYO is spearheading through its Zero Waste Cities project. And Jacob will share how cities, communities, and businesses can equally adapt composting and other organic waste management practices that are making a significant impact. So I'll hand over to Jacob for him to take over the session. Over to you, Jacob.
Thank you very much, Anaminta, and hello, everybody. I hope that we're going to have a very outstanding session today, and it is my sincere hope that after this session, a lot of us are going to leave here very well equipped to be able to ensure that we tackle the crisis that we're facing in a very sustainable manner. I'm going to be sharing my screen in a bit, but while I'm doing that, I find it absolutely important to sort of acknowledge the people who have made this project what it is today. And one of the main things I want to do before I even proceed is first of all to acknowledge the presence of GAYO's co-founder who is here with us, Desmond. Desmond has been a mentor to all of us here at GAYO, both in this department and even in other departments as well. And it is a great honor to work under him. Aside Desmond, there's been other colleagues of mine, Mabel, Jennifer, Maxwell, who work in this department, who have contributed enormously to the success of this project. And so this webinar couldn't have happened without them. And it is important that they take all the credits for what's happening here today. But beyond the team that is working in Accra, there's also other teams working in other parts of Africa, specifically in Uganda and Botswana, who are working effortlessly to be able to scale the kind of work that we've done here in Accra and ensure that Zero Waste Cities becomes a household name in the work that young people across the continent are doing. And I also want to appreciate our funders who have tirelessly supported us in various means, the UMI Fund, the Global Methane Hub, Clean Air Fund, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, UNDP, and a lot more that I'll mention in the course of the presentation. And also massive thanks to the GAY Africa team for supporting us in many ways than necessary. And of course, I cannot finish this without acknowledging the rest of the GAYO team members from Eco Club, from the climate team, from DRR team, all over the place. Massive props to them. So today we're going to be talking about how cities are moving towards a sort of management of waste in a linear model to more of a circular model. And that's important because Menta mentioned in his intro that we are facing a poly crisis. Several crises that have merged into one, that have linkages that are affecting our daily lives. And so when you look at the ecosystem or the landscape in Africa, and I like to say Africa is a country. Africa is a country because when you look at the problems or even the successes that we're facing in places like Nigeria, places like Cameroon, Senegal, South Africa, Kenya, Libya, Egypt, Ghana, they all have similarities. Very little tweaks when it comes to the real issues on the ground, but there's a lot of similarities that underpin both the problems and the successes that we have. And so this session is important because we get to see what people are doing in Tanzania, what GAYO is doing in Ghana, what Zero Waste Senegal is doing in Dakar, and what several other organizations are doing in their places. We see the similarities, we see how we can connect the synergies and ensure that we're able to scale the work that we do. By way of introduction, my name is Jacob Johnson Atakpa, or as Ubraijo will call me JJ, and I serve as the project manager for the Zero Waste Cities in Ghana. Well, I work from Ghana, but I support the project teams here in Accra, as well as in Kampala and Gaborone in scaling the work that we do. GAYO, or the Green Africa Youth Organization, we've been around for a decade and setting out as a student group or a youth group, the idea was to allow people or to encourage people to foster a desire to follow the fundamental natural laws that adopt a sustainable lifestyle that is in harmony with the environment, respecting planetary boundaries and ensuring that the ecosystem is healthy enough to support us and we are also able to take care of the ecosystem in doing that. Our work over the years has spanned very different places. So we've worked in community engagement, we've worked in movement building, we've had projects in, or we have projects in renewable energy, CDR, SRM, zero waste, disaster risk reduction, several places. And the point is that we're allowing this space to serve as a jamboard for people to tap in from the knowledge and expertise that we share as a community and are able to replicate the things that we do in different parts of Africa. The mission setting out was to provide solutions to pressing environmental issues through youth empowerment, engagement, research, as well as education. So in the presentation I'm going to do, a lot of painstaking research has gone on to ensure that the solutions that we're proposing to the kind of problems that we face, or as Minta mentioned, the poly crisis that we face, are grounded in science, because science is important. And we always say that without science, the solutions that you propose to the solutions will fall short and they will not achieve the results because there's no data that backs it. Our footprint has been, of course, like I mentioned, a project in Ghana, Uganda, as well as in Botswana, but we're also present in several other countries because of the presence of our youth climate councils. That is essentially an institutional mechanism that fosters the inclusion and, of course, the participation of young people in sort of determining what the future looks like for them when it comes to dealing with the climate crisis that we are facing, both the climate, environmental, and of course, the pollution crisis that we are facing. Thematic areas, broadly three thematic areas that GAYO works in. The first one is climate change. We have circular economy as well as disaster risk reduction. And then there's a very special part of GAYO that sort of allows or enhances the work of all these three thematic areas that I'll talk about shortly. So under climate change, there's the water for adaptation and period poverty that equips young people with the necessary expertise to be able to deal with the water shortage or water poverty that is ongoing somewhere in Ghana and the northern parts. And recently, the team led by Benedict and a couple of our colleagues sort of trained a couple of people, I think about 75 young climate leaders in dealing with the crisis that they are facing with up north. And so big props to Benedict and his team. There's the Trees for Biodiversity that is encouraging people to plant local or indigenous trees in their spaces to be able to enhance biodiversity and fight against the Galamsey crisis that we have or we are currently facing here. Then there's the Africa Climate Innovation Challenge. Essentially, what this challenge does is to be able to serve as an amplification model for young innovations within the climate space that are dealing with either mitigation or adaptation, and provide them with seed funding to be able to scale up their work. And in doing so, they're able to get recognition from other funders as well to be able to do more with the work that they do. The Youth Sustain Conference is essentially an academic conference that makes sure that we have young professionals within the space come share their research papers, findings with other people within the ecosystem, essentially fostering collaboration and cross-learning. And that's important because, you know, a lot of people say that when you do work in silos, you never get anywhere, which is true, by the way. And so collaboration is one of the key things that we are big on here at GAYO. Then I've mentioned the Youth Climate Councils, and then there's a Repower project that is enabling communities, or that is providing access to clean energy to communities that are off-grid by providing them with solar-based power. The circular economy wing where I work essentially has the Sustainable Community Program that I'm going to talk about soon, which of course metamorphosed into the Zero Waste Cities project. Then there's the Anti-Incineration and Plastic Pollution Campaign. That is a campaign, a regional campaign that is dealing with or fighting for solutions like incineration and sort of bringing the problem of the plastic pollution to the fore. And as many of you know, currently the world is negotiating a global plastics treaty that is seeking to end plastic pollution. And so this campaign is sort of bringing the real issues to the fore, how frontline communities are dealing with plastic pollution, so that negotiators who are negotiating at the world stage do not forget the issues that people are dealing with, and essentially negotiate a treaty that deals with all these issues. Then there's a sustainable enterprise-driven solutions to plastic management. That has essentially been a backbone of the project by creating an economic model around waste reclamation or waste processing, by ensuring that we build capacity of young people, women, the informal sector, to be able to engage in businesses around waste, or what you like to call ecopreneurship, dealing with environmental problems, but adding a monetary bit to it so that people can find synergies within the two and then do a work. And based off of our work, we're also a knowledge partner to the National Plastic Action Partnership and also, of course, the Plastic Treaty Team of Ghana. Under disaster risk reduction, we've delivered several statements globally, being recognized by the ECOSOC, by UNEP, and several other international agencies for the work that we're doing. and of course, competitions on International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, which we celebrated just, I think 2 days ago. That's on Sunday anyway. And of course, workshops and quizzes for important people around this place, like NADMO, school kids, and all that, to be able to see the importance of reducing the risks that we face, and also ensuring that people, as it were, are aware of the synergies between the crisis that we are facing now and how they exacerbate the disasters that we have, so that we can take very much urgent decisions and care in taking care of the environment. Then there's the very important part, which is the Eco Club. Essentially, the Eco Club is, and I like to call them this, the youth wing of the youth organization, because what they are is the embodiment of the future aspirations of the environments that we seek to protect. These are people in educational institutions that essentially are training themselves to be able to be the next eco warriors, if you permit me to call them. And so under that project, or under that wing, there's the Developing Youth Ecopreneur Project, where their capacity is built. They are given seed funding to be able to develop projects that are dealing with the climate crisis. There's also the EduSustain Hub that is taking a more democratized, or let me say decentralized, approach to building capacity by going as low as to junior high schools and senior high schools, to be able to ensure that we, as it were, catch them young, so that they belong to the environments forever. Then there's also the mangrove restoration project that is dealing along the coastal lines of reviving our mangrove ecosystems that are being threatened by the cutting down or the chopping down of mangrove species for firewood, etc., etc. Then there's a research grant for students who are sort of researching into some of these issues that we're going to be talking about. And then they've also pioneered plastic-free and zero-waste campuses as well. In doing all this work, there's a critical part that involves the planning, or as it were, the conceptualization of what you want to do. And the goal essentially for the project is to deliver a community-led, local government partnered solution to pressing environmental problems. And one of the major ones is the threat of pollution, that's waste, as well as air pollution, because burning of waste is something that is very rife in sub-Saharan Africa. And the AMCEN, or the African Ministerial Conference of Environment, passed a resolution that says that we need to reduce open burning in Africa and eliminate it as well. And so there's a concerted effort to deal with that. And of course, GAYO is a part of that, where we're part of the multi-stakeholder partnership to end open burning. And permit me to also announce that based off of the work that we've done in sort of diverting waste from burning pits and sort of cleaning our air by ensuring recycling, we were recently named as one of the top 15 finalists for the Earthshot Prize, and actually top 3 in the clean air category. And hopefully, fingers crossed, by the first week of November, we'll know if we won or not. And I hope all of you are praying for us to bring the prize home. We're actually the first youth-led organization that's ever been nominated for the prize, and the only one from Ghana this year. So the preconditions for the project to happen or to take place are, there has to be a problem that's evident, and that problem is a problem of waste mismanagement, air pollution, and then, of course, a willingness to deal with it. The willingness to deal with it is important because if you're having a problem and you don't want to work on it, there's no amount of effort by anybody, even yourself, that is going to yield any results if you do not want to work on it. And so there must be a willingness to deal with the problem, to try to solve the waste crisis that we are facing for this project to work. Otherwise, the project will be deployed. You do everything in your power to do it. But because there's no willingness to it, you're not going to commit resources, time, and energy to make it happen. The preconditions essentially, or the requirements for this to happen, is that the local government authority has to be willing to deal with it, because in Ghana, for example, and this can be adapted to several other countries, waste management is a prerogative of the local government, or and other places they call them county governments. That's their prerogative. They deal with waste management. The community has to be willing to collaborate in co-creating the solution and implementing it. So even if the local government alone is willing to deal with the problem, if there's no community acceptance, the project is not going to work, because the project is not designed for the local government, it's designed for the community. It's just that the legal authority to take certain actions rests with the local government, which is essentially a representation of the people or the community. The assumption that we work with is that the science behind the solutions are sound. And like I mentioned, research. So there has to be research. The science is sound, and that solutions from other parts of the world, like other speakers are going to share, or other participants are going to share today, will work in our solution when adapted to local context. And I always say this, that there's no one size fits all approach. And so if GAYO is doing this in Ghana, even moving to Uganda, there had to be a little bit of tweaks to the solution, because the situations that we face here in Ghana are similar to those in Uganda, but they are not identical. And so there has to be a little bit of tweak to it to ensure that they fit the local context and people in the local communities understand properly. The interventions that we propose literally look like segregation of waste and ensuring that household institutions segregate the waste at source. There has to be composting, recycling, urban gardening. And then we track these by knowing the quantity of waste that is diverted from either landfills, burning pits, etc., etc. And then the livelihood improvements for waste pickers or cooperatives, and essentially quantifying air quality improvement by fixing air quality monitors in sensitive parts of the city to ensure that we are able to track. And again, this is where the science comes in. So before you deploy your intervention, you know the quality of air. After you deploy the intervention and say people should stop burning, you know if people have stopped burning when the quality of air has improved. If the quality of air has deteriorated, then you know that there's another problem. Even if they stop burning, it means there's another problem and you need to look at that. And so science has been a fundamental part of this. And when you look at these pictures, they are not strange to me, because this is literally evidence of how we manage waste, here in Africa. And so you can see the burning of waste, you can see the disposal of as it were organic waste there that is just left to sort of go waste essentially. And then you can see burning as well, and you can see all the black fumes that are coming from that, and the threats to human health, the threats to environment, etc., are very profound in these situations. You can also see a beach littered with plastic waste, essentially. And recently I saw a video where there were some fishermen who had just come back from sea. They pulled in their nets and they were literally counting the fishes that were in there, as opposed to sort of taking out the waste. Now the situation has deteriorated so much so that they are now having to pick fishes out of the plastic waste that they caught with their nets. And this is becoming a very big problem for people that are living in coastal communities, because it is not only a threat to marine life, it's also a threat to their livelihood as well. And so um, actions or interventions that are deployed to be able to ensure these things. Then on the right, you can also see a sort of a transfer station, as it were, where a lot of waste, different types of waste has been mixed and dumped at the same place. And this is most likely going to end up at a landfill where people are going to try to salvage the recyclables from it and ensure that the waste essentially doesn't, as it were, undergo anaerobic respiration and produce methane at the landfill. We'll come back to that a bit shortly. So it started when the first project was conceived and implemented in Adanse South, that is New Dibiase, somewhere here in Ghana. And essentially, the way the project started was to engage the community. So the first step is always to engage the community. You can decide to sit somewhere and sort of conceive what you want to do, ensure that the solution that you are preferring is sort of going to address the problem. But you need to engage the community. Paramount reason for this is because I always say that there's nobody who knows the problem more than the person suffering from it. And so even when you go to a doctor and he wants to sort of diagnose you, he first of all asks you a question. How are you feeling? Do you feel this? Even if it's pain, he's going to touch a part of your body and ask, is there pain here? What of this other side? Before he even prescribes medication for you. And so in preferring solutions to issues like these, you sort of take it as though now you are the doctor, and then the patient is not the human being, but it's the community. So you have to engage the community, ask them what the problem is. What do you think the solutions are? And indigenous knowledge has always been pivotal in deploying some of these solutions to local communities and indigenous peoples. And so community engagement and mobilization, where people understand the veracity of the problem that they are facing, but also aware of the kind of harm that it poses to them and how they can attempt to solve it. Then there's waste assessment and brand audits, where you check the waste profile of the community that you want to deploy in. For example, If you go and build a plastic recycling plant somewhere in a remote village that is predominantly farming community, you run at a loss because the waste profile will most likely tell you that they produce more organic waste than plastic waste. So you're going to set up your plastic recycling firm anyway, but then you're going to be raking in about 1 ton of plastic a month, and that cannot be as it were, productive for anybody. And so you always need to know the kind of waste that is being produced predominantly in the community before you're able to prefer the solution that it is. And so waste assessment and brand audits. And the important part of the brand audits, like, and I'm sure the guy members here will bear me out, is always to identify who the polluters are so that we can hold them accountable. Because many of them are not, or do not take responsibility for the end of life of their product. Then beyond the community engagement, there's also the stakeholder engagement where you need to talk to several different people within the community. And so, of course, clearly there's going to be the local government. There's going to be community leaders or opinion leaders who may not necessarily hold any political or even traditional role, but their opinions or their voices are taken very seriously in the community. And that's important. You need to engage those people in order to have them buy in into the idea before you even begin rolling out. And then there's also the waste management guys who predominantly are the ones who deal with waste management or sort of try to clean up the city and all that. You need to engage several people, local government, ministries, agencies, several people along the value chain to ensure that they understand the project before you're able to roll out. The impact of what we did in Edubiase a couple of years ago is that people stopped slashing and burning on their farms. So as opposed to slashing and burning, when they clear the land before planting, they're able to bring the material down to the material recovery facility for composting. Then at markets, because they were educated on the importance of segregation, they now started to segregate their waste. So organic waste were going into different bins, and then plastic waste and other recyclables, paper and the likes were going to different bins. And then there was a different bin for residuals. And then household waste was not burnt anymore because they understood that the more organic waste that you bring to the material recovery facility for composting, the more organic compost you get for your farm because the DBRC was predominantly a farming community. And then they were now centralized and household composting. So centralized composting at the material recovery facility, household composting by the households themselves were unable to bring their waste to the material recovery facility. And now we had more organic farming. And this was also a big marker for us because previously farming was done in such a way that you use chemical fertilizers that were subsidized or they were imported and subsidized by the government and then they were imported, subsidized to farmers, and then shared to farmers and then for use in their farms. So we transitioned to Accra based off a successful pilot in Edubiase. And Accra was different because now the waste profile is different and you have different people having different experiences with the waste crisis that they had because this place had way more beaches. It was impacting tourism, it was impacting fisher folk, etc., etc. So again, it starts with community engagement and mobilization. Talk to people, the people that are in the community, how they face the problems that they face, etc., etc. Then you had your waste assessment and brand audits where, of course, again, identify top polluters and ensure that you submit this data to the EPA as well as the Ministry of Environment or the environmental agency in your countries to ensure that they're able to hold these corporate polluters accountable, especially when they are crafting policies around extended producer responsibility and the likes. And again, you do your stakeholder engagement. And now you are in Accra, essentially the capital. There's way more stakeholders to engage. There's traditional authorities, there's the sub-chiefs, there's, of course, the opinion leaders, there is the influential people in the community, there's local governments, there's real estate agencies who are also producing construction waste. There's way more people to be engaged. And so that was a very important part of the project that's transitioned to Accra. And here you can see one of the brand audits that we undertook where sort of counting the plastics that we picked from, I think this was a beach. Yeah, and that's ornamental there, by the way, taking out the plastics to be able to identify who is polluting what and who is not responsible for the end of life of their products. Then there's the building capacity of the informal sector. We'll talk a bit more about the informal sector later, but for now, there was the need to build capacity in converting some of the organic waste that we produce into mushroom. And so this is a form of alternative livelihood production where we're able to do this and ensure that people do not rely on just one stream of income, essentially the waste picking, but are able to diversify their portfolio, as the investment analysts and investment bankers will say, to be able to ensure that they have multiple stream of income and are able to sustain themselves as well as their families. Then there was a creation of the economic model around waste recovery that looked like waste pickers now sort of buying waste from households. So as opposed to paying for your waste to be collected. Now, when you generate waste, you're able to get somebody to pay you for the waste. And the economic model was such that the waste pickers collect the waste from the households, and then they are now able to sell to the recyclers or the off-takers with the provision of the MRF. And so now you're having income for waste pickers and the informal sector actors because there's an economic model that runs in a circular loop. And that was good for us because now the waste pickers are getting their dignity restored and they are now being recognized as legitimate actors within the waste management stream. Now there's the monthly average. So the material recovery facility was set up again with help from the local assembly because I mentioned earlier, the local assembly is very important. It's very important in developing this. And so in moving very well with local governments and ensuring that they sort of buy into the project, we sort of had them commit. And it was one thing that we always did to ensure that people commit or the local government commit so that it won't be just a GAYO project, but it will be a partnership within the community in the local government to ensure that people really understood the project and give the project legitimacy with the residents. And one of the success stories is that when the MRF was being developed, we had a resident association around that sort of drew the attention of the assembly to the project and said, oh, we see people sort of trying to manage waste in a certain way here, but we want to know what's happening. We want to know what's happening. So then the assembly called a meeting between the project team as well as the residents and sort of the explanation went on what the project is. And now they are one of the big proponents of the project where many of them, because it's a high-end neighborhood, they were disturbed with pollution. And so they now, when they saw that there was no pollution that was going to go on, they now drive by and bring their waste and ensure that we keep or we manage their waste. And so there's a 30-ton monthly average of waste that is being diverted. So all this waste here would have even gone to a landfill or will be burnt or whatnot. But now it is being brought here for processing in an environmentally sound manner where the organics is turned into compost and then the plastics are built by the waste pickers and then they are sold now to an off-taker or a recycler who now go and recycle these plastics. Because the mandate of waste management is given to the local government has officers known as the environmental health officers. They're responsible for ensuring the integrity of the environment or the health of the environment within their jurisdiction. And they are the ones who essentially deal with waste management in collaboration with the waste management department. So we built capacity so that they could understand the model properly, and in understanding the model are able to now serve as proponents of the project whenever they go out to do their weekly or even bi-weekly engagements with people, residents within the community as well. And so we built capacity to understand the model and also understand the importance of working with the model in their locality. Now, waste pickers are very important, or the informal sector is very important to the kind of waste. And so there was a research carried out by the Greater Accra Regional Integrated Development where they sort of assessed who collects the waste that is generated in Accra or in the city of Accra. And 51% of that is collected by tricycles or the informal sector. And in collecting the waste, they sort of enable or enhance the recycling rates of the process by ensuring that they segregate both either inside the truck or whenever they even go to dispose of it, because they also recognize the importance of collecting the waste and selling it to recyclers. And so we got two municipalities, Ladade, Kotopong, and the Jokoko municipalities, to be able to integrate the waste pickers and the informal sector into their waste management architecture and giving them, even as far as giving them concessions to be able to collect their waste, essentially legitimizing the work that they do. Based on all these experiences, we launched a zero waste framework for the city of Accra. And this framework has been instrumental in the work we do because now it has now been the blueprints for replicating the project in several other places. And so when you go to Uganda and Gaborone, where the project is scaling, let me say has scaled to, this is the blueprint that is being used. And it's important because this document essentially is the foundation of the project. And so when you take this document, whether you are in Dakar, whether you are in Pretoria, whether you are in Lilongwe, wherever you are, you're able to take this document, take a critical look at it and adapt the parameters to your local situation and ensure that you're able to move ahead with the project. So community involvement, engagement, and sensitization has been a very big part where community members are involved in giving out the organic waste and practicing segregation at source. They attend and participate in urban garden training workshops to be able to use the organic waste or organic compost to be able to farm or farm green spaces within their compounds, and even for those who don't have land, have wall gardens, etc. And they dedicate time and resources to set up gardens with the help of Maxwell, our urban farming officer, who you can see in the picture. So based off of the success from the municipality, now we're scaling. And in scaling, the first thing again is to have an understanding with the municipal assembly or the local government authority. And here you can see a picture of an MOU signing with members of the team, as well as the local assembly that we're scaling to, which is the Clote Municipal Assembly, where we signed MOUs with not just them, but several other municipalities here in Accra to scale the work. And the MOU is important because, again, the assembly has to back the project. Essentially, they have to give legitimacy to the project, more as it were. And in giving that legitimacy, this document is what gives legitimacy to the project and tells people that we are on board with GAYO and we like what they are doing and we're happy to support them. So beyond that, we move to doing again the waste assessment and brand audits by ensuring that we're able to see the waste profile within the community that we're going to serve, and also again identify the polluters as well. Now, in order to make the projects very profound and have a lot of people see, we engage with city managers or coordinating directors. They are the sort of administrative hierarchy of the city, and then the chief executives, who are the political authority within the city. And so the local government and political authority in administering the cities that we work with. And so within the Greater Accra region, we had a workshop with them where we presented it to them, and many of them are showing interest in the model and they want us to sort of scale to their municipalities. Then beyond that, we sort of move to have the engagement with the entirety of Ghana, because we can't be solving the waste crisis in Accra and forget all the other parts of the country. And so there's engagement with city managers from all over Ghana, where you can see our co-founder, Desmond, sort of enlightening the attendees of the conference on the importance of the zero waste model and how it can help them deal with the waste management issue. And as a matter of fact, the waste management issue is not a burden for just Accra. It's all over the place. And so there was a lot of enthusiasm from people in different parts of the country saying, oh, we want the project to come there. And this is important for us because, again, the local government has, and these are the leaders of the local government, they have to show enthusiasm or they have to show interest in the project in order for the project to scale there. And beyond that, there's also the engagement with waste picker groups, who are a very vital part of the model, and ensuring that they understand the importance of the work that they do. And knowing the importance of the work that they do is very good, because then they're not just doing it because it's a means of livelihood for them, but then they know the environmental impacts that they're doing and they are seen as champions of the environment. So in managing the organic waste, all those things need to happen before you can now properly manage the organic waste. And so composting. Composting is a very low cost technique in managing organic waste. And the reason why we say composting is because when organic waste is sort of sent to a landfill that don't just deal with organic waste, it deals with several types of waste. And those types of waste sort of are hard layered: plastics, electronic waste, and whatnot, residual waste. When they mix up with the organic waste and then there's no penetration of air, a very harmful gas known as methane is produced. And methane is one of the very potent greenhouse gases that is about 80 times more potent than even carbon dioxide. And so it does way more harm in trapping heat into our atmosphere than even carbon dioxide. But it's also a short-lived a short-lived gas, which has about a lifespan of between 30 and 40 years. And so in order to prevent the methane from being produced and trapping heat, we deploy the method of composting. So it transforms, or composting is a method that transforms organic waste into a sort of a soil amendment. And by amendment, it's something that you can add on to the soil. It doesn't necessarily replace the soil, but you can add it to increase biodiversity life within your soil, as well as increase the nutrients base of your soil for your plants. And so there's aerobic composting that involves the decomposition of organic materials by microorganisms that require oxygen. And so this process is the composting. So when you do this, you're able to produce organic compost for people to use. Vermicomposting is where you use worms or larger organisms like worms and BSF and the likes, black soldier fly, to be able to decompose the waste that you are producing, and essentially also produce nutrient-rich compost called vermicast or worm castings that you can apply to farms. Then there's the anaerobic composting. This one is the one that happens at landfill, but you can also manage it locally, where households deploy this method to be able to, as it were, decompose organic material without the presence of oxygen. And this one produces methane. Even though methane is a short-lived climate pollutant, it also has the ability of combustion. So households are able to deploy not the compost piles or compost pits, but the one that people use to be able to manage their fecal matter, which is the biogas digesters essentially. And they harvest the methane and use that to be able to attend to cooking at the local level or the household level. And so these are pictures of the composting that is going on, where we have several pits here that organic waste is brought and fed into. And then that's Maxwell, our urban farming officer, teaching a group of exchange students how the compost is produced, as well as how they can apply it to farms, etc., etc. Then, because the material recovery facility, when you tell people to segregate their waste, you cannot just take one part of the waste and leave the other part of the waste. So you have to take all the waste. And so this is except of waste pickers who brought their plastic waste to the material recovery facility in nets. And then the other picture is where it has already been built and ready for sale for two, I beg your pardon, two recyclers and off-takers who usually visit the material recovery facility to buy the waste. The strategic approach to urban gardening is that when you produce the compost, you need to use the compost for something. It can't be sitting there. And so returning carbon back to the soil and ensuring that you close the circular economy loop. And so you generate organic waste, use it for compost, then you can use it in farming. And here you can see farms that our urban farming officer Maxwell has been able to put up with the collaboration of communities, and you can see people having a tour of the garden with Mabel showing them the different kind of plants that we have. And this is important because it enhances food security and sort of shows people innovative ways to garden, even though they've concreted several parts of the city, and ensuring that people have reliance of food, safe food to eat, devoid of chemicals that are used in large-scale farming. And so here you can see more of the gardens that, again, Maxwell has set up with okra, with lettuce, with cocoyam, and then the likes. And here more gardens with lettuce as well. And you can see several innovative ways of gardening. Even though the land is not enough, he's been able to put together a sort of a vertical garden made of waste again, which is bamboo and construction waste of wood that is being used to set up this nice table to be able to accommodate more plants within the garden. And these are evidence from sort of the garden: tomatoes, lettuce, okra, and the likes that are all harvested from several gardens that Maxwell has been able to put up. A major part of the work and how the informal waste sector activates this is because they are informal, they are often neglected. They are not taken into consideration when cities are planning their waste management, because they are not able to sort of unionize or galvanize their support. And so the one thing that we did with the project was to be able to ensure that these pickers or the informal actors are able to form cooperatives, unions that are recognizable or that are recognized by local governments, and ensuring that now they can have access to all the goodies that the formal guys have. And so doing this has been that we've been able to form cooperative of waste pickers or waste workers within various assemblies here in Accra and even outside of Accra to ensure that now they are having concessions from local governments. They are getting contract from local government and taking care of waste, essentially restoring their dignity and ensuring that they have good livelihood. So the informal economy and yes, over 600 workers in the informal sector, and this is just two municipalities. There's Ga East, there's in Sawoma, Dwedri, there's several other places in Cape Coast, Takrady, Nyamiye, landfill, and the likes. And now we're in the process of nationalizing them. And so beyond forming the cooperatives at the local level, we want them to have a bigger voice because the plastic treaty is ongoing and we need them to speak up more. We need them to speak up not just on a global stage, but even locally when governments are essentially enacting waste management laws. And so we're unionizing them and ensuring that they have a national union and can now be invited to places where there's power or where there's authority and make a case for themselves as opposed to having others make a case for them. And so these are some of the partners that we've worked with in the past, several municipal assemblies, several funders, several partners that we just partner with to deliver side events at COP, at several international engagements and the likes. And you can see quite a number of internationally acclaimed partners here and even local ones as well. And so this brings me to the end of my presentation, and feel free to reach out to us on social media at GAYO Ghana or Green Africa Youth on YouTube. And of course, there's a phone number there, there's an email there. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions about this. And thank you very much. Back to you, Nana Minta.
Thank you so much, Jacob. That was really inspirational and inspiring with what GAYO is doing. Sometimes even those of us in the team, we are like, this is massive and this is something which the communities need. You know, if you are creating a solution, just as Jacob made mention, the one who is suffering or has the problem is the one who knows how he or she is suffering it. So it's important that we engage them for us to know what is actually wrong with them or what is actually happening in the communities for us to give the best solution to them. And that's what GAYO has always been doing from time immemorial. And I'm really proud to be part of this team. Yes. So the next session is questions and answers. So if we have anything for Jacob and then the Zero Waste team, Mabel and Desmond and Maxwell, feel free to do that. You can raise your hand. We'll call you, then you can do the speaking, provided your background is okay to talk. Then that's fine. If not, you can use the chat box and we'll be okay to read it to Jacob and then his team. Yes, over to our audience. If you have any question regarding what he presented or probably suggestion and equally your opinion on that, we are willing to take that. Okay, Minette.
All right, hello, Nana. Hello, everyone. My question goes to Jacob. I know GAYO is doing a lot when it comes to waste management, especially plastic and organic waste. I just wanted to know if you guys have done any research or you are thinking or you are doing something to maybe work on e-waste. We know e-waste is becoming like very, very common, especially considering the fact that people now think that having vehicles and other electronic materials is luxury in Africa. So I want to know what GAYO is doing when it comes to e-waste management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minette, and really good to hear from you again. With respect to electronic waste, let me start from this angle, the angle of sort of trying to reduce open burning. Because electronic waste usually comes with, or electronic materials or gadgets, appliances, come with some plastic and usually, because it's multi-layered, some plastic as well as some metals. In order to extract the metals, what usually happens is that people resort to open burning or the burning of the plastic to be able to get the plastic off the material and then get the metal. And many of you would have heard of a place called Agbogloshi, which sort of was touted as one of the most toxic places in Ghana. Recently, or very quite, I think it's been 3 years now, Agbogloshi has been shut down. And what we've done in that regard is to be able to deal with some of the clusters of people who were working at Agbogloshi and sort of bring them to the facility. And this model is also to be able to ensure that they reduce burning. And so when you bring them to the facility, you show them environmentally sound ways of dealing with the waste. so that you don't burn. We have partners within the tertiary area that sort of have machines that are able to take apart the plastics from the electronic parts, and then the electronic part is sent to Tema for safe recycling. And so it's a place that we've also been working in along the electronic waste value chain, and we have a couple of partners who are also doing that here locally. And so yes, that is a place that we worked on. But when you talk about research, there's also a research that was commissioned by the research team. I don't know if Paul is here, but the research team of GAYO, and the title is The Role of the Informal Sector in Achieving Circular Economy in Accra. And so there's research that has been done to be able to quantify the impact that e-waste recyclers, plastic waste recyclers, and even organic waste recyclers have contributed to the recycling rates within Accra. And so there's research in that area. But when it comes more to work that has been done on the ground, yes, there's also been work that we've done in the area of electronic waste, and it's part of the scaling model that we're trying to take to other parts of Africa. Thank you very much, Minette.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for that response. Do we have more coming in? And one thing that I can equally share with what GAYO is doing is, in as much as we are building a zero waste future, it requires not only rethinking our consumption patterns, but equally empowering communities and young leaders to champion sustainable solutions. So we equally engage youth and equally foster inclusive community, our various efforts where we can create a movement where every voice contributes to a clean and equitable world. This is something that GAYO is doing in terms of leadership. As you can see, almost 100% of the team members are youth, and that's something that tells you that we are equally leading what we say and doing what we say from our end. So do we have more questions coming in? If your background is kind of noisy, kindly use the chat box and we will read the questions to the team.
Yeah, Nana, I think Ubajo's hand is up.
Yeah. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Sorry for that.
Thank you very much. I want to give kudos to the GAYO team. Indeed, they are not just young people, they are young innovators. That is the way I see the GAYO team. Very vibrant set of individuals who are thinking and who are working in line with technological changes. Over the past few months or a year plus that I started interacting with the GAYO team, I have actually learned a lot from the model of the GAYO in Accra, and also from other of our GAYA members across Africa and across the world. I just want to say that in Nigeria as well, we are actually promoting the zero waste model as well, but we are a bit moving a bit slow because of the cultural diversity. When I mean cultural diversity, that has a lot of influence on how zero waste is actually adopted and practiced. One of the Jacob, one of the successes we are not actually celebrating is the fact that Gaia has been I think one of the first talking about zero waste across the world. But as at last year, we were able to force the United Nations to make zero waste a day to be celebrated. That is one success story that we are not actually pinpointing when we are talking about zero waste, because this is a song we started singing many years ago, and we created that model, not just mentioning the terminology. We gave a guideline, direction on how zero waste can be practiced, or the steps that can be used to attain zero waste. And that is what the world actually is adopting. So why I say in Nigeria, we are moving a bit of in a slower way is because of the culture, the waste management culture in Nigeria is a bit poor. And when we started our model, we didn't just come to this technological side, community-driven technological side of it, which you have to talk about the MRF and the composting processes. No, we started with conscientizing people, even our government officials. We had to start conscientizing them because they lack the technical know-how on how to drive the process. There are quite a number of policies that actually exist, but how those policies are enforced was a big problem. So we started engaging at that level to see how those policies are actually complying with zero waste model. And I can tell you that at the moment, that policy angle is actually very effective because many states in Nigeria have started looking into their policies, reviewing those existing policies to accommodate critical components of zero waste. And one of those things that they have done to ensure that their policy comply with zero waste is the massive banning of single-use plastics. I think you can hear that from every corner. Lagos still took the lead. And as we speak, in the city of Abuja, most of the parastatals have also banned single-use plastics in their environment. And many states, as we speak, are also follow suit to ban single-use plastics. And these are the practical steps. It's going to also cascade to that community level where we are going to have the material recovery facility and all that. So one of the things that we did as GAYO Nigeria team is the fact that we had to develop the zero waste guideline. That is a document that is actually sought after by government officials. Even the government officials are already asking us, how much will it cost them to implement that zero waste guideline? So that's to tell you the interest in the zero waste crusade. So we are currently gradually replicating the GAYO model in our respective communities as we speak, because the awareness is not much, because people are already beginning to talk about zero waste. We are now beginning to start introducing the bit of element of the material recovery facility component of it. But the way we are not doing it is that we are doing a kind of decentralized, because we are putting farmers into perspective. Let individuals own the process so that they can do a bit of small composting. We used to call it farmyard manure in those days when we were doing agriculture. Farmyard manure, so that individual can start practicing this. So when individuals start practicing this, it means that everybody will look at the importance of having that. But we are tying into a major campaign that we are also leading, the addiction of inorganic fertilizers. So those inorganic fertilizers, we are trying to win farmers away from it and encourage them to own their own composting facility, which is far, far cheaper for them as well. So we are doing that. And just like in Nigeria, unfortunately, local government don't even have the authority to manage waste. They don't even have a record of how waste is managed. Waste management is in the hands of the state government. Okay, and in so doing, government also, they are running away from the responsibility of waste management, because they now put it in the hands of private individuals who are waste collectors that don't even understand how waste management policies work. So the Nigeria context is a bit complex, more complex than your own terrain. But I believe that with time, as we move gradually, we'll be able to get our government officials and individuals to follow the track of the zero waste model. And that is what we are currently doing. And we are currently partnering with research institutions to ensure that we do not leave it for only government alone, but researchers need to come with innovative model to also support the policy direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Obrajo, for that insightful one from your end. And we do really appreciate you bringing this on course. We're hoping that things will be as we expect it to be at your end. So before we have some experts on the call, from Tanzania, Senegal, and then equally Ghana. So, but before they come in to share their perspective and their ideas, what they are doing there based on their experiences, we have one question from Asanta Ramat. So, she is following up on the e-waste question, and she's curious about the other forms of waste, such as metals and glass. So, what are we doing with that? So, I'll take that. Okay, see, she is actually asking a question. I was going to call him to equally contribute to that. So, if Jacob, you can take that, and then I can call the team to equally share their perspective on these topics here.
Yeah, thank you very much. In recent years, there's also been a very big market for glass as well. And so the facility or the MRF that I speak about that Mabel manages, it's a facility on an edifice that welcomes everybody who is willing to manage waste in a zero waste way by using environmental justice principles. And so it's a very big space that welcomes everybody. And so there's also collection of metals at the facility because we don't endorse burning. And so while the metals come on, the waste comes there, you cannot burn. You have to manage in an environmentally sound way. And because there's a market for it, and waste management essentially has become sort of a market-driven activity, once there's people who are willing or recyclers who are willing to buy, waste pickers pick that. And so there's metals that comes to the facility. And recently, Mabel informed me that she's engaging somebody who is willing to also collect glass as well. And the market for glass has also become very apparent because now, I mean, many of the handmade beads that a lot of us wear around these days are made from glass that has been recycled. And so there's also the collection of glass as well. And I've been to the site, I've seen how it is being the glass waste is being repurposed and sold to people who use it in sort of making beads around the Krobo areas and all that here in Ghana. And so there's also the collection of that as well. And so every stream of waste is collected at the facility, except household hazardous waste, that is waste that comes from sanitary use and the likes, and that one has to be sent elsewhere for management. And so there's a formalized company here in Ghana that deals with those kinds of wastes, the sewage waste and then the household sanitary waste and the likes. And so those ones are not collected at the MRF, or waste pickers don't pick those ones. But any waste that has value, metal, electronic, organic, plastic, glass, and paper, even textile waste. One of our partners, and I'm not sure if they're on the call, but Upcycle It collects textile waste from Cantonmento and then sort of upcycles it to tote bags that we've shared to school-going kids in several of the campaigns that we've done with support from Upcycle It. And so every waste that has value comes to the MRF.
Okay, thank you very much, Jacob, with that for answering Ramat's question. So we move on to Shishi's question with respect to engaging the community, encouraging compost at source, and the perception of from them, so that we can give the platform to Shishi himself, Moma, Benson, and then Thomas Baba to equally share their experiences in this line of work. So after that, you, Jacob, answering that, then we can move to Koalis, and then the team can come on board. Yeah.
Apologies. Thank you. Yeah, Menta, do you want me to respond to the question, or you wanted
yes, so you can
Moma
respond to the question and then Moma can come in here.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. And so yes, there's segregation at source of the households, and for some of the households who are unable to bring the waste to the MRF, we encourage them to do the composting at home. And the composting again at the household level is sort of different. So we just ask them to pile up ties, waste ties sort of, and then sort of dump the organic waste inside and occasionally turn it in order to get the compost. And we say this because waste is always best managed when it's decentralized. That way, you're able to cut off the transportation of the waste from a long distance to the material carry facility. While the facility is important in managing waste, it is not the only way in which waste can be managed in an environmentally sound manner. So if you have space in your house and you can compost your organic waste, we happily encourage you to do so. And in the Chado household, Maxwell has engaged several households who are now doing their own composting with food waste, etc., from the household level. And so there is household composting. But again, because a lot of spaces within Accra have been hard engineered, where you have the floors sort of tiled and concreted and all that, they're unable to sort of manage it properly. And so we say that if you do not have bare land to be able to compost the waste, you can always bring it to the facility. But again, waste is always best managed when it's decentralized.
Okay, thank you very much, Jacob. So before Omar, before you come in, let Collins ask his question, then the team can equally take it in a row, if that's okay with you. So Collins, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for lightning time. And I must say JJ, you did fantastic job by analyzing the process and also ensuring to see that this thing is scalable. People can actually really do it in their community. My first question is, how long does it take for, let's say you want to start talking to people or ensuring that your local community, because the goal for me is to see that this thing that we're learning here is replicated in our own smaller communities. So how long, say you want to say, I want to tell my neighbors or my people in my church or people around me, let's start doing, because you just said now that decentralized composting works better. That it can be something that everybody can just get involved in and come into the central location to avoid all that cost of transporting and the rest. So how long does it take for a compost to be ready that can be used to fertilize that? That's one. And in a fishing community, should we advocate for centralized or household composting? Then you also talked about 3 types of composting: aerobic and anaerobic and vermi. And in the vermi composting, you talked about BSF. So I want to be very sure, is it BSF farming, or is it BSF, or you apply a worm or something to that vermi composting? Then the last one I wanted to ask is, using my own community where I stay and CTID, we don't have a major MRF. But what we have is somewhere that people go to dump waste. But the focus of the informal waste, because there are more on the plastic angle. So how do you encourage composting that kind of place whereby everybody's attention? In fact, when you go there, they're asking you for nets so that they can gather their plastic. And you see people come and all their focus is on the plastic. So how do you encourage composting in that kind of sector? Because of course, there's always going to be organic waste in that environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very loaded question. So I'm going to give it over to Mabel to respond, and then Maxwell can also come in to chat a bit about that. But I'm happy to come back as well.
All
right. Okay. Hi, Collins. I'll just start with question 1. The first question says, how long does it take for compost to be fully matured, and how do you encourage people to do their own composting? So firstly, I want to say that not everybody in the community knows about organic composting, that they can do it. So it takes communication. You have the idea on how it can be done or why it should be done, you have to start the conversation. When you start a conversation, then you draw their idea or you draw their attention to the need of getting your own compost done and why it is important, because it's healthier than when you do your own planting with your own composting. It is healthier than when you buy it from on the markets, because you do not know the components that's went into planting, and it takes 6 weeks. It takes 6 weeks for you to have a fully matured compost. You just have to make sure that you take them through the processes that they have to go through to get an organic compost, like teaching them how to do the tire composting, putting in only organic compost without oil, and amongst others, adding sawdust to it so that it reduces it balances the pH of the compost and all that. You just have to talk them through it, and then you're good to go. People's attention would come back to the need of having their own organic compost. And I'll take the third question. I think I missed the second question. I didn't really get the second question. I'll just take the third question and ask you to highlight again the second question for me. The third question was, looks like everybody's attention is now on plastic waste. How do you turn their attention to organic, or how can you let them start looking at organic compost? Was that it, please? Just to confirm, that was the question. You're muted.
In a local MROF where we are in our city here, so where they carry all the waste and go and dump. So most of the informal waste speakers there, their focus are majorly on plastic, of course, which is good, and we encourage them to see how they can recycle this plastic. How can we encourage them? Why there are a lot of organic waste that are being dumped in your dump site or your local? How can we encourage people to get involved?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Colin. Okay, so currently, informal waste workers or workers along the waste chain understand the need for them to collect the plastic waste because of some incomes they make from it. So they are all focused on it because when they collect their waste, they're able to sell it to the recyclers and they're able to make some quick and fast money into their pockets. Here lies the case where organic waste management has not really, education on organic waste management has not really gone out there. People do not understand why they should segregate the organic waste and use it for compost. They'll be, okay, I'm not a farmer, so why then should I segregate my organic from my general waste? They do not understand the effect of methane gas. So this is solely up to us to start doing the education on it. They'll say, just like I said earlier, they'll say, I'm not a farmer, so I can't do this, I can't do organic farming and all that. But they do not understand that doing that, they are saving themselves, they are saving the community, and they are saving the earth, and also they can make some sort of livelihood. Organic farming or segregating the organic waste from the general waste, you don't necessarily have to turn it into compost for farming or planting your tomatoes or pepper or something. You can turn it into mushroom. And in the case of 4 weeks, that is a month, mushroom is ready, and you can sell mushroom continuously for 3 from 1 bag. So you just have to make sure that they understand the economic value of the organic waste, and also why it is important, why they have to look at that angle as well, because we have made them understand or think the economic value for the plastic. It is time for us to do the same for organic waste. And then I'm sure that these people are going to turn their attention also and look at organic waste. They're not going to turn entirely. They are just going to adopt organic composting and use it for their economical gains. Yeah, so I think I'll leave the second question for Jacob. Take.
Sure, that works. And I think the second question was on how long do you take to educate a community to sort of adopt zero waste practices? And in my experience, and I think the rest of the zero waste team here at GAYO would respond to that, education on zero waste never ends. The minute you start, it doesn't end. You need to keep going back to community. You need to do community engagement. You need to let people understand, because the way communities work is that when people sort of understand what they are doing, it always works well because there is a sort of an attachment to it. But when people just do something because somebody says, just do this, it works, there's really no commitment to it. And so in my experience, and of course in the experience of the Zero Waste Accra team, community engagement doesn't end. The minute you start, it goes on till you just never end. You need to keep going back to the community. You need to keep taking feedback from the community in order to be able to improve the model. And because this model is not one that a lot of people are used to, you need to keep going back and keep taking feedback from the communities. And that's again important because you need them to be able to serve as ambassadors for the model. And so in constantly taking feedback and constantly understanding what the process looks like for them, they are able to give you more data, and you're able to also keep educating them and letting them know how they can also tell other people how the model is working for them and how that model can be adopted by other people. And so my simple response to your question is community engagement does not end. Back to you, Nana.
Community engagement does not end. I think probably we should have termed this webinar as Zero Waste 101, so that we can have a whole course on its own. Yes, thank you very much, Jacob and the team. So I'll call upon Moma to actually take it up.
Sorry, Nana Minta. I just want to come in and then
Sure, Maxwell.
Correction on the how long does it take for your compost to be matured? I think Mabel, yes, come in, but actually it takes 12 weeks. 12 weeks for your compost to be matured. So depending on the depth of your pit that you are doing your compost, and then how you have piled it, and then the turning process. So when you are turning your compost and then you realize that you're no more experiencing any heat from it, and then you see that the color is beginning to change, you have brownish color, you know that your compost is matured, and then the temperature level reduce, you're no more experiencing any heat, so you can harvest your compost, and then you take it to the lab to test. But for the testing, it's not this thing, but the most important thing is to use it on your farm. When you see that your crops are doing well, you know that you have a fully matured compost, and then it's well fertilized, and then you can use it for your crops or whatever. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Desmond, for that. Sorry, Maxwell, I keep on calling you Desmond. Yes, maybe you have something to say.
Yeah, I wanted to correct myself for that, just to highlight on it. It takes 12 weeks, just like Maxwell said, but when you're having the compost done for mushroom, the compost is ready for is ready within the space of 6 weeks. So just to correct myself on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the clarification. I quite remember when I was doing a course related to this, and then the first time that the lecture started, we were talking about mesophilic, thermophilic. Your mind make yay. Thank you. And this actually makes us understand what composting is, and with the normal knowledge where we can actually use to equally apply at our ends. So I'll call upon Jacob. Do you want to come in?
Yes, my attention just got drawn that there was another question that Collins asked about the vermicomposting method and then the BSF farming. And so yeah, just to sort of speak about that a bit, the vermicomposting method is when you use organisms that are a bit bigger than microorganisms, like the small ones in the soil, to do. And one of those ways is to have the larvae of the BSF sort of decompose your organic waste as well. And so even though it is not in the strictest of terms a method of vermicomposting, it's another way of quickening the decomposition process of your organic waste when you do black soldier fly farming as well. And so that's just the bit I wanted to add to clarify for Collins. And Collins, let me know if that answers your question.
So I wanted to just, so are you putting the organic, this external factor into your compost, like the vermi? Are you going to transfer that external organism to your compost?
Precisely.
Thank you. Thank you. So we will keep the communication going.
Yes, because when you transfer it to the organic waste, it quickens the decomposition process, or it breaks down the organic waste faster. Okay. Precisely that. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This massive Zero Waste 101. So I'll call upon Moma to actually share his experience in the zero waste in Senegal. And then right from there, we can have Benson from Center for Earthworks, and then Thomas Baba, Upcycle Ghana, who they are dealing in textile waste, and then Shishi from the Pofagio to equally come in. So do we have Moma on the call?
Yes.
Okay, all right, over to you.
Yeah. I don't know I'm going to share my screen or just to say what we are doing.
You can equally share your screen or probably do the talking with your experiences. We are okay with that.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have the same issue in Africa about waste, organic waste, plastic waste, and e-waste or glasses and everything. So just to remind, in Senegal, we don't have a plan for organic waste, but the country has identified the recovery of biological waste to produce either organic matter composting or energy like anaerobic digestion as a means of increasing its GHG, reducing emission. So, and that Senegal also intends to reduce its sector's emission by 13% by 2030, maybe we hope, and 31% over the same period of external assistance is provided. And we are facing a huge problem about organic waste management, and we don't have many projects about it. The, many things we are doing in Senegal is to plastic waste, how to sensitize people to reduce plastic or to find some solution for that. And sometimes we forget organic waste, the importance of organic waste. So our association, organization Zero Waste Senegal, we have right now one project to try to combat climate change by recovery organic waste in three regions here in Senegal. The capital, Dakar, the north of the country, Saint-Louis, and the south, Kolda. We are choosing three sides of the country because the importance of organic waste. Yes, that's why we choose this three region, and we want to promote the sorting of organic waste to generate cooking gas and compost in order to improve women's socio-economic conditions and also to diversify women's economic activities. And our main result is to reduce methane gas at source. So we started started the project last February, and is ongoing. We hope at the end of the project next January we can have many results, and it's just a pilot project, and we hope after we could scale up for maybe 5 region or 10. So before after that, what we are doing, we have two components, and the first one is trying to composting, and what we are doing is to train women's association and equip them with composters, and with each association we choose 10 women to train them about composting technique, how to do composting, and the business model after, how they could sell them to farmers or something like that. And right now, I think we have 70 women, yes, 70 women trained in composting technique. And after composting, we have we will give a biodigester for 10 association too, and we will train them about how to use the gas for cooking or something like that, maybe to send them about for farmers, because the biodigester uh, gas and fertilizer. Yes, uh, I think one, yes, kilogram for biodigester, no, 10 kilogram of composting for biodigester, and 12 hours of gas. And today we gave 5 biodiesel for 5 association, and 50 women are 50 women are trained. So we hope at the end of the project, we hope to have each biodiesel could produce 12 hours of cooking gas of and organic fertilizer. Yes, and composting, we hope to have 100 kilogram of organic waste composting for each association and used for agriculture and for farmers. And about training women, 200 women will be trained in composting and methanization technique. So that's the thing we are doing right now in Senegal, and it's just a pilot project. So we work with some partners, technical partners like Methanizer Africa here in Senegal, and we hope after that we could train more people about organic waste. How can we recover organic waste to compost and methanize, yeah, cooking gas. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama, for that. And amazingly, you are doing well. Sometimes we don't even consider biogas as a form of ways to transition to the aspect that we want. We always talk about electric stuff, but it's high time we actually look into that. And it's equally good for us to create alternatives to whatever that we are doing. So before we do that, the comms team, if we can possibly turn on our cameras so that we can take a picture, then we can continue to have some of the experiences from the team from Nipo Fagio and that of Center for Earthworks. Then we can wrap this call up. Actually, I'm not going to say it's a webinar. I'm going to say it's more like a course, Zero Waste 101. So we are going to do that. So if we can turn on our cameras for us to take a group picture, that would be nice, at least to see our beautiful faces. All right, so we can do that in the next 2 minutes. I think it should be good. So, McCall, if you are ready to take the shot, I will be very grateful for that. It will be amazing to have everyone.
Hi, Nanamita.
Yes, please.
If we can give them like a minute or two so that they get the background right, so we can take the picture, I would be grateful.
All right, sure. So while we do that, Benson, Center for Earthworks, if you're on the call, you can equally share your experiences within the Zero Waste Works. That would be very amazing. So while we wait for our audience to set their cameras. Yes, over to you, Benson.
So thank you very much, comrades, and good afternoon here from Nigeria. My name is Benson, and I work with the Center for Earthworks. So a quick experience sharing is that actually since 2020, what we did was to begin to actually explore into the issue of zero waste. What we started was actually engaging the waste pickers communities. And after engaging them, of course, we went on to have a series of capacity building. And one of the key issues that stood out was that, okay, so if really there is value in compost, how should they practice it? And we now discover that indeed there is need for a demonstration for them to really, really comprehend, because we did it in a mini scale and most of them were still demanding for a more elaborate engagement. So what we did was to actually continue. Another aspect we had to engage with is that of the issue of policy. We had to engage with the Ministry of Environment, and we also engaged with the local sanitation task force. So one key lessons we learned is the fact that Nigeria is kind of entirely unique, unlike the experience we got from Nipe 5 where in municipalities, it is mandated that all communities pay a certain amount for their waste. Here in Nigeria, most communities, waste management is actually a social issue in the sense that the government provide trucks whereby waste is being carted away and then dumped in the landfill. So convincing them was kind of difficult. So we had to start with the issue of plastics for them to begin to gather plastics and other waste. So for them to be able to effectively do so, we had to introduce the segregation as source. And then each year, what we did was to actually build on what we have done. So in 2021, we had to like get a mini site near our office. And over time, we have been able to kind of put structures in place. And hopefully by next month, we'll be launching our MRF. And one key lessons we learned is that, of course, when you want to really go into the zero waste work, you should learn. One key lesson you must take home with is that it's not just something you will rush into. It's not going to be a year project. If you want to do it in a year, you may eventually crash. You have to build on trust. So like throughout this year, what we have been doing, we had to also look for a community to begin to pilot community engagement. So what we did is to adopt a community, and we started teaching them source segregation. We carry out awareness. We went on the radio. We use tools of social media, and then we had to select informal waste speakers. So thus far, we have been able to train over 80 informal waste speakers and waste ambassadors. So it's actually holistic, and the issue of organic composting is really, really strong. And just like it has been mentioned, if we have to do composting, patience must be a virtue, because compost is not something that you will have to get in just a month. No, you have to wait a minimum of 3 months. That's around, of course, 12 weeks. So one key thing, of course, is the need for awareness, is the need for building on gradually, is the need again for getting a dedicated team. If you don't have a dedicated team, the zero waste work will be difficult to actually implement. So well done to the GAYO team for organizing this information sharing session. So if there is any questions, please, you can go onto our social media handle at _CFU to see what we are doing, or you can just email me directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benson, for that. And we are hoping, and we know that the MRF that you want to set will be successful for us to move on with the zero waste communities in Africa. Yes. So McCall, so we can come back to the picture taking, so that we can have Shishi from the Pofagio to equally share his experience, and probably they are having or hosting the Zero Waste Academy, so he can equally talk about that as well. So please, let's feel free to turn on our video so that we can do this ASAP. Then Shishi can take it up. Yes. We give everyone the time for you to, look good. So we shouldn't take time doing this. Yes, that's it. All right. So probably we can have the zero waste sign. It's not the Illuminati sign, zero waste. This is zero and this is W. Yeah. So we can do that. And then yeah, Baba is at Kantamanto. He's also doing his thing. So he's on the move. All right, so Macaulay, if you can take it up. It will be very amazing to have everyone turn on his or her camera. Yes. Macaulay, are you good?
Thank you very much, guys. You look lovely.
Okay, so we will let Shishi equally take the last part off, and then we can conclude today's course, Zero Waste 101. Yeah, over to you, Shishi.
Thank you, Nana. Can I share my
Sure, you
screen?
can.
Okay.
All right, let me make you a co-host.
Yeah, Shishi, you're a co-host now, so feel free to share the screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you again. And thank you, GAYO team, for having me here. I'm really pleased to meet you, my friends. I have not met for a while, so it's very great to be here. So because Jacob has already spoken a lot about composting, so I will just jump through something that he didn't touch it. So to begin with, actually I'm Wilhad Shishkai. I work with Nipefagio, and our organization has been working for more than 10 years. And our work is guided in 3 pillars, which is data gathering, policy advocacy, and action. So all these are meant to bring the systematic change into the waste management sector. And our work for 5 years, the past 5 years, has been in the zero waste law to make sure that we have the systematic solution that matches our context. So we began the implementation of zero waste model, and we call it a model because it's something that needs to continue. It needs a continuity on the practice that ranges from the household, the waste pickers, the government, and all people and all actors in the waste management chain. So we began Dar es Salaam, and then we moved to Arusha, and then we moved to Zanzibar, and soon we'll be starting in Tanga and Mwanza. So that's like our zero waste map in our country. And to go straight to the topic of today, which is all about organic waste management, just to have a quick statistic here from the report of the UNEP about food waste. It says that over 1 billion meal a day is wasted, and out of it, 60% happened at the household level. And at the level of food services agencies like the restaurant, about to 28%, and at the retail level, about 12% of food is wasted. So we can see like it is a problem, but we still have an opportunity when it comes to the issue of organic waste management. And talking about the organics, we have the organics which can decompose very slow. We have like the organics which takes like a minimum time, and we have some of the organics which are highly decomposable. So these are like the 3 categories. And where are they coming from? I think Jacob said mostly are coming from the household. We have the hotels, we have the market, from the farm, and sometimes the dead animals. All these are some of the sources of organic waste. So coming to now managing organic waste through composting. So this is a key thing that I just wanted to pinpoint. Actually, there are two things which now is coming up. People are confusing compost and fertilizer. So when doing composting, the end product of composting is a compost, which looks like a humus. Also, as Maxwell said, in order to know that is matured, this should be a brown color or something dark, and it should smell like a soil. That's what is a compost. So a compost is actually a soil conditioner. It enables the soil to have the capacity to ensure that any plant which is planted is really maturing effectively. So compost supply the earth with nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and improves its ability to keep these nutrients. But the fertilizer is just fed to the plants, and it guarantees a minimum percentage of the nutrient. And to be sure, fertilizer, most of the fertilizers are chemicals. That's why you can apply to a certain plant, and within maybe 3 days, you can see the impact. But you can still plant another plant there once you harvest, and then if you won't apply the fertilizer again, then you won't harvest anything. No yieldings will be as compared before, yes, as compared to before after applying the fertilizer. But the compost, when you're applying the compost, you can harvest maybe one season, and then you can continue planting another, and then you will harvest. That's because compost is a soil conditioner. It just ensures all nutrient that is supplied in the soil is kept and can stay longer. And the science of composting actually relies on these factors. When you're doing composting, you are relying on the oxygen availability. That means you need oxygen, especially for the aerobic composting techniques. So you need the oxygen, you need some of the moisture, you need the microbes, which are the bacteria, fungi, and etc. Also, you need the carbon materials, and at the end, you will get your final compost. And the science of composting also really needs the ratio balance of carbon and the nitrogen, which means the balancing of organic waste and dry waste. You really need to know how to do that. And also you really need to keep the ratio in a balanced manner. If maybe you are putting 1 bucket of organic waste, you need to put 1 bucket of dry waste. And the dry waste can be the sawdust and other dry leaves. So that's where the magic of composting happens. So in composting, actually we have been facing some of the factors which looks challenging. One is the mindset of our people. Some sees it as complicated. Others are seeing it as like it's a job, like to be not something that can be done in an easy way. So with that, it has been slowing the impact of segregation of organic waste from other waste. And that has been like a big challenging factor when it comes to the issue of segregating organic waste from other waste. Also, others are saying that it's not my job. So doing composting or segregating waste is not my job. And this is another challenge. And other are challenging from the health aspect, that doing composting will be having a negative impact to health, to the smell, and it will not be good. Also, we have another challenging factor from the government. Like actually, there is no clear and supportive policies and laws to really make sure that all of these initiatives have a legal document to really push it and influence the change that we are seeking for. And in our zero waste model that we are implementing in Tanzania, organic waste is collected from the source, and we keep our organic waste in the bucket. And whenever the collection is done, our waste collectors need to weigh so that we get the actual statistics on how much organic waste is generated. And they're being taken direct to our material recovery facility where composting happens. And this is an example of equipment that can be used at home. Like we can talk to our people and let them know that we have this option where they are very simple and they are very friendly to use when it comes to the encouragement of making sure that people do composting at home. So this is like, we call it tower garden composting, where it has an opportunity to grow other vegetables like you see. And this is a pot composting, and this is a pipe composting. Also, if you have like a drum, you can set your drum as a composter for at home, like this one. Also, if you have a backyard, you can use a small windrow composting, like as it shows on the pictures. Also, we have like the community composting setting, like this on your left, on the left pictures, as you see. This is a concrete pallet where all the organic waste is fed in it there. And when harvesting, you can just remove all the pallets and then harvest your compost. Also, you can do the windrow composting if you have enough space to make sure that you manage all the organic waste from the household. Also, you can have this one, another one, like the pallet composting from wood. Also, you can make the concrete chambers for composting system. So all these are the options when you're setting up the community composting. Also, you can think of setting another community composting system like this, which is concrete with the pores to let the air flow easily so that the composting goes faster. So in all this technique, the duration of the composting differs depending on the composting methodology that you are using, also the turning, and the balancing of the organic and dry waste when layering out your composting. And to sum up, like to make sure that we really do better when it comes to the issue of sustainable organic waste management, we really need to do source separation of waste, and that should be mandatory. Also, we really need to see how the government can set aside a land for community composting of the MRF. Also, we need to seek for the supportive laws and the policies for our initiative, and the government will and the prioritization for this thing is really crucial. So when thinking around, these are the summary of things that we need to push it accordingly. And we say when people are given a good choice, they take it. And this is because many of us, we know composting is possible. Even if you take, maybe you are left over food in the soil and leave it for a week, and then you will see some of the magic is already happened there. So composting is something that is known, but we need to do a proper communication to our people so that they really understand and go away from the negative narrative they have, like it will smell and it will bring chaos to the community. Thank you. And that's my end.
Thank you so much, Shishi, for that in-depth knowledge in the when it comes to Nipo Fagio's work in the zero waste model. We really appreciate that. So if you have any question for Shishi, probably we can do that, a quick one, so that we can bring today's session to an end. Yes, I think we've spent 2 hours, and yeah, exactly 2 hours. So I'm waiting for questions. If not, we can bring it to an end. If you want to ask more questions, I think Shishi can leave your email or your social media handles, Jacob as well, Muma, Benson, and equally Thompson, who couldn't talk because he's on the move at Cantamanto. So let's leave our social media and our emails equally in the chat box for anyone who is ready to reach out to learn more and equally engage in these practical things. So on this note, thank you all for joining today's insightful session on organic waste management under the GAYO's Zero Waste Cities project, and equally folks from Nigeria, Senegal, Tanzania sharing their experiences in the Zero Waste Cities agenda and models. I hope today you are leaving with valuable knowledge and practical solutions that can be applied to your communities and cities. So as we've seen today, managing organic waste isn't just environmental necessity. It's an opportunity to transform our urban spaces, create economic benefits, alternative livelihoods, and equally contribute to a healthier planet. And I know and I believe that together through collaboration between citizens, businesses, governments, we can equally build a future where waste is minimized and resources are maximized. So let's continue to engage, share ideas, and take actions, because the solutions we've discussed today can make real difference. And it all starts with the steps or the little steps that we take in our own communities. So on this note, thank you all for being part of these vital conversations. Let's stay together, let's stay connected, let's stay inspired, and let's work together for a zero waste future. Let's have a lovely day and let's have a great time at our ends. Thank you all for joining once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You.